Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. And as I usually tell you every week, I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist, and I'm also the parent of at least one and probably two ADHD kids. And they are all older, and so when we first recognized there were some issues, we didn't have an ADHD diagnosis, we didn't have an ADHD description of treatment, and we had practically no research. And so uh, I made pretty much every mistake you can make raising an ADHD kid. And but since that time, I have pretty much been in an intensive self training program and trying to figure out exactly what I should have been doing. And I have been treating patients with ADHD or ADHD families, however you want to look at that, for about 40 years now. Oh my God, it's actually a lot, a lot more than that. But 40 is a nice number. What the heck? Um, but the deal is with ADHD is that it's a neurologic condition. That's the big thing. It's a neurologic condition. There, it's not a behavior problem. It's not just because you've got an ornery kid or or what a lot of your relatives and such will like to say is that you're just a lousy parent. It's got nothing to do with any of that. It's inherited. Okay, if your kid's got it, guess what? Probably one family or the other, and sometimes both, have got a lot of issues with ADHD. They just maybe never formally treated it or just ignored it. Just a he's just a normal boy. He'll grow out of it. Well, guess what? You don't grow out of it. What happens is that you become a little bit less hyperactive, but you still have pretty much. I mean, the big deal is the executive functioning problems. Okay, now if you're not familiar with what that means, it's basically all the planning and organizing, getting stuff done on time, all those kinds of things are not functioning very well. Okay, um, you probably have not. Well, you may have heard of it, but when we working memory, I call it the etch a sketch part of memory. It's stuff you're not really planning on remembering for the rest of your life, but it's stuff that uh, makes your current life more predictable and easier to function in. You have a problem. Okay. Say your boss tells you to do three things, and nothing huge. Uh, would you check with who's he in HR, and then check to the guy in supply and get six tablets, and then uh, just get back here as soon as you can. And the minute you leave your boss's office, you totally forget it. Everything he told you. At this point, you have the option of guessing, going anyway, sort of in the direction you were told to go, and maybe lucking out and getting one of the things that you were told to do, or maybe totally not. You may just totally forget it until your boss comes in and says, "Hey, I asked you to do such and such and such and such. What happened?" And it happens like that. As kids, you tell him to go up to his room and make the bed, pick up the toys off the floor, and put his laundry away. And you check on him a half hour later, and he's done two of the things and totally spaced on the other one. That's working memory, and that's a huge issue. I mean, for something that most of us have never heard of, It is a huge issue, and it gets in your way on the job when you're an adult, and it also, irritates the heck out of your parents, and a lot of times your teacher too, if they don't know what's going on. And that's the kind of the important thing, and the thing we really have to emphasize most with ADHD families is you got to understand that you're not dealing with a behavior problem. So all the things about discipline and punishment and all that stuff don't really apply. Okay, it's not that they're trying to make you angry or trying to show you up or any of those other things. It's that they literally have forgotten it. And the other thing is that I can explain this. I'll probably do that later on in a different show. But discipline, punishment just doesn't work with ADHD kids. It's the way their brain is wired. They will work like crazy to please you if you're one of those folks who gives them the occasional compliment, but they don't do well with people who just punish. They really just don't. So, as a parent of an ADHD kid, what you need to do is teach them compensatory strategies. And there are some compensatory strategies. There's some things they can do. They're pretty common sense. There's nothing real complicated. That helps them get through their little problems with executive functioning. And like I said, none of them are real complicated. But they've got to be willing to do it. And a lot of times they don't. They aren't willing. And you have to figure out how you're going to handle that, because it's a kind of a big issue. The biggest thing and the general rule with executive functioning is, when executive functioning goes on inside, right? Nobody can tell if you're executive functioning or not. But the single one thing to remember is, if you're trying to compensate for that, is you have to externalize it. You can't try to just, I'll remember that, because you won't. You just won't do it. Not because you're being ornery, but because you can't. And it's real simple to compensate for that. Just write everything down. If you're told to do something, write it down. And always have the equipment to write it down with you. And that's, it can be a steno book. It can be a daytimer, or one of those organization things that gives you a lot of room to write things down. But you have to write it down, because, by the time you walk down the hall, 10 minutes have passed and you've forgotten it. It's gone. You don't have it anymore. So, and, I happen to be a paper and pencil kind of guy. So I use a daytimer, and I've been using a daytimer since 1980, maybe before that. It's a real simple. You can buy as big a one as you want. I've got one that fits in my back pocket, and that works great for me. I write down things, and as I age, I'm starting to write down more and more things, because I need to do that, or I will forget it. And, you have, as an ADHDer, you've got to do that. You've got to do the same thing. And it's nothing negative. It's not like you're less of a man, or you're a wimp, or whatever. You're retarded or something because you have to write everything down. No, you just have to do it. And it's a good thing if you write it down, because then you won't get fired, or won't have your parents yelling at you all the time, that sort of thing. Okay, the other thing that ADHDers have problems with is the sense of time passage. That is, ADHDers aren't very good at recognizing that I was going to do this, and I thought it would only take me 20 minutes, but it's been an hour, and I still am not done. That's one part of it. The other part of it is, well, I've got an appointment in 10 minutes, but I've got this other thing I want to do, so I'll do that, and then I'll make that phone call that I'm supposed to make in 10 minutes. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. It's to get involved in doing one thing, and it'll last way into the time that you set aside for the other thing. I have Currently I have a coaching client. She does this all the time. And a lot of times she's doing it when it's our appointments. So I'm waiting around for her. Where the heck does she, do I call her or should I just let her wait? Anyway, you have that kind of going on. But basically, and she's always, oh, I knew we had an appointment, but I still had 10 minutes before the appointment, and I thought I could just, get this one other thing done before then. And it just took longer than I thought. Yes, ma'am, it will. Okay, but that's what your problem. It's part of the problems that you face because you have ADHD. And doing this or taking care of this is timers. Okay, anything that's got a little alarm or a buzzer or something that you can set so that it goes off when you're supposed to switch tasks and go to whatever one you have scheduled, like my appointment. So you have to do that because you won't remember it. You won't keep awareness of the other competing activity in your mind. So set an actual alarm. And I don't care, if you're one of these folks that loves to use your phone for everything, fine. I have no problem with that. But set a darn alarm. And if you don't have that, get yourself a kitchen timer, and get the most loudest one you can get. I mean, and I don't mean the sound of the buzzer, but I mean make it be a big red one or purple one or something. And, set for 10 minutes if that's when your next event has to happen. Do it every time. Don't say, oh, I'll remember this. You won't. If you think about it, you have lots of proof that you will not remember if you don't set some kind of a timer. So let's work with that. And then a lot of times organization is an issue. And organization is an issue because you sit down at your desk where you're planning on doing such and such a piece of work, or you're at your desk at home and you've got homework for school or something, you've got to have a plan. You have to have a checklist. You have to have a procedure you follow to get a task done, especially if it's a long, complicated one. Okay, you have to actually write the pieces down, ideally before you sit down at your workplace. So you go there and you're all ready to go. You're going to spend 10 minutes doing this, and then you're going to take a little break and you're going to spend another half hour doing this, and so on. You've got to break it down into small pieces. You leave it as one big project, I've got to get this paper done for school. It has to be 15 pages. You're going to spend a lot of time going back and forth about what I should do, when I should do it, and all that stuff. Plan it out. Plan ahead. If you need to, get somebody who's familiar with doing this kind of stuff. Maybe a parent, maybe a friend who's really good at writing reports. But what are the steps? What do I have to do? And you got to do that, and you've got to at least give a rough estimate of how much time you're going to spend. Otherwise, you will find yourself waiting until the night before it's due, and then having a panic attack at trying to get it all done. So, and the other thing is I think most people, actually probably most people in the world don't think about it, not just people with ADHD, but you need to set it up so you take regular breaks. Like you work for 40 minutes, and you take a 15-minute break, something like that. You need, so you keep your energy up, and you're not just always feeling burned out and worn out and all that stuff, because you just keep working, and not very efficiently, honestly. You know what you're like. You will draw the task out as long as you can, because you're not very efficient at getting the stuff done. And that's what you have to do. You have to do all, I mean, and these are not complicated things, Most of it requires a piece of paper and a pen. Uh, the timers, of course. And that should be your life. That keeps you going. That's, the if you can't do it, if you don't do it, somebody else will have to do it for you. Now, like, people are frequently surprised that ADHDers do pretty well in the military. Well, there's a reason they do pretty well in the military. In the military, there is close supervision, very clear demands on your performance, and somebody who's going to check on you frequently. And that helps ADHDers stay focused and get the work done. They, it's not like they just throw you into a job and let you go. Man. Most of the jobs in the Air Force are done by people who, well, not just the Air Force, in the military, are done by people who are not previously trained for them. So how do we take a kid who just graduated from high school and make a jet engine mechanic out of him? Checklists, checklists, checklists. Breaking everything down into a smaller unit, and then have a boss who's going to be checking with him regularly. Okay, and that's why ADHDers not just survive, but that's why they flourish in the military environment. Okay. In the civilian environment, it's a lot less close supervision, and they just come back in 2 hours and are surprised nothing got done. And the supervisors, that isn't going to work with an ADHDer. But you can't count on always having an external supervisor to keep you focused. You need to take that job on yourself. And as parents, you need to teach him or her how to do these things themselves. Here's your timer. This is the way you use it. Set it regularly. If you're doing homework, set it all the dang time. Don't just let it sit there and gather dust. Use it. And the same thing with a day timer or planner, scheduler. It doesn't matter. It can be on your phone, it can be on your iPad, it can be on your computer, but it has to be something that you use regularly. If you use it regularly, it saves you from troubles. Okay, it doesn't make you less of a person. It doesn't indicate that you're not very bright. It indicates that you see a problem and you have figured out how to solve that problem. Okay, so remember, externalize your executive functions. That just means that all the things you aren't good at, which are usually, time sense, time management, working memory, all those things, you need to have an external way of reminding yourself of what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras. This has been Dr. G's ADHD Chat. Show making the world, or trying to make the world safe for ADHDers, because we need ADHD people. We need people who think outside the box. They solve the problems that normal thinkers, or however you want to put that, don't do very well. Okay, neurotypical brains are good at keeping the system running the way it's always been run. ADHDers are good at solving problems when they aren't the usual norm. And so we need that. We need people who have that ability. Okay, I am. I mentioned kind of briefly, but I do coaching, and usually I'm doing ADHD executives or entrepreneurs. So if you're fun to fall into that um, category, give me a call and let's talk and see if we fit together well. Uh, my website is terrygingrassphd.com. You can find out how to contact me there, and look forward to hearing from you. And we will catch you later. See you next week.